Hi everybody and welcome. Here I would like to introduce to you the new version of the Base OverRig script, version 8.0 with new features, which I would like to present to you today. So what new features do we have? Let's actually move from top to down. Here we have the aim tab, and there is a new feature which is called overlapper. I would say in modern times, in modern scripts, it's a rather popular feature which is added essentially everywhere and used by a lot of people. So I decided to add this functionality to my script as well. I just decided to create my own feature, my own version. So let me show you how it actually works. There are actually nothing special. There is nothing special about this tool. So let me show you. So how does it work? Let me select this joint chains. Let's say we have a character. Of course, we have maybe some kind of joint chains. Maybe like clothing or stuff like that. I'm selecting the necessary joint chains that I want to overlap, and the first checkbox is hierarchy. So what does it do? If it is turned on, then the selected object, the first selected object, is considered to be the part of hierarchy. So it's considered to be the first part of a certain hierarchy. But if it is turned off, then the selected object is considered to be like a single selected object without any hierarchy. It's very important for further use, so please keep in mind this fact. Let's put set softness to 1. Next, lag, it's essentially, lag or dragging of the each element of the joint chain. Let's say 8. Absolute offset is OIBS offset. It is essentially the number of frames by which the each joint chain is going to be offsetted. So effectively, the more this value, the bigger the offset is for each individual element in the joint chain. If the absolute offset is actually turned on, it has a slightly different functionality. It essentially gets offset relative to the entire animation. I'm going to show you a bit later what it does. Easing is used to soften the animation itself. If maybe there is some kind of noise in animation, maybe it's a bit there are jaggedness in animation and so on and so forth. Cycled, naturally will produce the cycled animation. If the character's entire animation is cycled, naturally you'll need to get the cycled animation for the clothing and other parts as well. I have pressed the execute button. As a result, we got this animation. As you can see, we also have baked animation layers, which is good because we can use these layers to adjust our animation. We can adjust the weight of these animation layers, so naturally it will decrease the effect of this overlap. You can see the difference between the weight of 1 and weight of 0. Next, let's actually cover the save poses functionality feature, because we missed it earlier. Let's say we have maybe some kind of this animation, as you can see, the flying animation or something similar, and I want to animate these pieces of clothing respectively, so relative to this animation. Let me select the needed joint chains, and I want this animation to start and finish on the same poses as in the original animation. So the first frame and the last frame should essentially be the same. Usually it's required for non-cycled animations. I'm going to select the joint chains, hierarchy, softness, maybe let's set it to 1, lag maybe 5, non-cycled, but here it actually may be cycled, depends on the animation. We check save poses. Cycled also can be checked on, it will work as well. Let's press the execute button. Let's wait for a bit. Since naturally there are several joint chains, because that's why it takes some time to calculate. Maybe like approximately 20 seconds or so. Okay, actually 11 seconds. All right, let's take a look. Now you see we now have this overlapping effect, but we have this transition to our original poses, like first and last poses specifically. If I turn off, we actually should turn off all these layers. I assumed it would have turned off like simultaneously. Yeah, but we can see that the poses haven't changed. I mean the first and the last poses. And the entire offset is baked into these layers, edge additive layers. It's right here, as you can see. And naturally we can edit this, maybe offset in any way and form. Maybe I want to move it right here. Maybe we want it to start like later or earlier, depending on our needs. And that's what we get. Yep, something like this. Alright, let's cover the next feature. It's the noise button, noise functionality. Let's press it. It's a very simple tool which adds a bit of noise to our animation. For example, let's say we have a character, again, the same character. We have an animation here. Yeah, this guy. The guy has these tentacles. They're animated in some way, doesn't matter. And right here, only the first joints first joints are animated. And there is a question: what if I want this tentacles to make want to make them more dynamic, a bit more alive, a bit more random, chaotic? Because it's not just like something like some kind of piece of clothing that just hangs down and that's it. No, it should be something alive. It's just something just moving. So I'm gonna select again the joint chains. I'm gonna add them to the animation layer. I'm gonna set keys at the beginning and at the end of animation range. Select the rotate. And then I press the add noise, actually not press, I actually start moving the add noise slider. As a result, we get something like this. By the way, this slider controls the extension or the strength of the noise. This one controls the scale, so we can adjust it after adding the noise. I would say it's not really that important. It can be used just for tweaks and editing after adding noise. Though we can actually adjust the animation layer weight as well to achieve the same effect. We also can select the rotate X or just separate rotation channel just to maybe add noise to this channel specifically. We can do it, just selecting it, again, adding noise and so on and so forth. So essentially we can add noise to separate channels if necessary. Maybe, you know, like this area, you see what is happening right now. And of course, if I move this slider to the left, it's going to remove the noise, remove the keys. So moving to the right, it's going to add noise. To the left, remove noise. So naturally, if I need a lot of noise, I can move it like this to randomize it a lot. Yeah, something like this. Okay. As a result, we have this noise. And now we see that these guys are moving very chaotically. I actually think it's a bit too much. So let's decrease the animation layer weight. Next, we can go back to overlapper. And what is the idea? Now the animation is a bit too drastic, a bit too maybe jaggy. So I can set softness to 1. And I can set lag to negative value. Let's say maybe -5. Let's give it a shot. And here, if let's say if I decide to execute as is, of course it's going to be cycled. The animation is going to be too choppy, too ragged, jagged, and so on and so forth. So we can use easing in this case to soften down our animation, to smooth it down. So that's why we can use this easing parameter and set it to some value. Let's say in this case, maybe let's try 2. I think it should work fine. I suggest experimenting with all these parameters because it's rather easy to figure out. Unfortunately, it's not very interactive, so you have to execute it each time because it's a bit difficult process to make. Okay, I'm gonna press execute. Let's take a look, and you see what we got. Again, we still have this random noise, this random movement, but they're far more smooth. Plus, we have the overlapping effect, and now it looks much more alive, much more unique. Yeah, these tentacles actually look quite nasty. And of course, we have all these baked animation layers, and we can adjust these. We can control the weight of the animation layer. We can turn off the anim layer because this one is not necessary because it's a layer with noise. So this is the original result without the noise, and this is with the noise, with the overlaps and stuff like that. Yeah, we can leave it like this. It's soft, not as rapid, so I think it actually works for this character quite well. Awesome, let's move on. The next feature, let me create a cube. Let me create actually a view. Again, I created the animation layer. I have added a motion, some kind of maybe randomized motion, doesn't really matter. You may have noticed that we have these additional buttons that are called SL and Not. What do they do? What are they actually used for? Let's take a look. Again, a lot of people actually asked me to add this functionality. When we apply the not, like any nodes, I mean not like not offset, not orient, stuff like that, which essentially the functions that actually create something and attach something to this created object. So in this case, we kind of created locators or nodes in this case, and here we have OverRig nodes. So it's a selection set. This selection set contains all the groups, all the locators, all other additional objects that are needed for the system to work. Doesn't matter. Essentially, everything related to the node system, it is added to this selection set. But the objects that were used, they're added to the OverRig objects. And now, having this as all function, I can press it, and maybe I want to bake everything. So essentially, entire rig, everything that we had, everything that we added, just to clean up the scene. I can press as all. It's gonna select all the objects that are the part of this node system. Or on the other hand, I can press the node button and select all the parts or the locators that are connected to this node system and everything that we create through this script. So I can select all the objects, like all the geometry. I can maybe next bake it if I want to. Or I can use this function, bake source and delete. It's gonna select all the objects, it's gonna bake them and delete all the unnecessary stuff. I'm gonna bake it. You see the result. So the animation has been baked. There are no leftovers. But be careful with using this function because it's very good when you are working with maybe small changes, small animations, like you added maybe some kind of tweaks, offsets, and you want to bake this down as fast as possible. Or it's actually also very useful when you have a lot of things that you have done and you want to bake down everything. This function is useful for that as well. But when you are work in progress, and maybe when you are working nodes, using nodes offsets, you are rebaking maybe arms, legs separately, then chest, and so on and so forth. So you're working with parts of the object, parts of the animation, parts of the character. It's not very efficient to use this tool, this bake source and delete, because you may delete essentially everything that you have added while working with animation and while working with nodes. Just be careful with that. And also one important thing to remember. Let's say we use forward kinematic or inverse kinematic. You want to bake it maybe. Let's apply it right here. And now you see we have baked IK. Maybe it's very useful when people work with mockup data and maybe you want to edit the animation, maybe for legs and stuff like that. And this IK, essentially this IK is used as a small rig for some kind of small edits. So if you use the bake source and delete function as is, it's going to delete these things as well. But if you need to keep this, essentially remove these objects from the selection set just to keep them somewhere, maybe in a separate group or something like that. And then you can delete all the rest. You can just right-click, then find sets, and here remove selection set, selection from set, and overrig nodes. And now this bake source and delete function will not affect these nodes that are used for K or any other things that essentially are removed from the selection set. But of course, as all function will not select this object as well. By the way, I think this sets section actually has appeared only in my 2022. Just keep it in mind as well. All right, that's it with this one. Let's move on. I still have things to show you. The last thing I actually want to show you is pivot. Okay, let me show you the example. We have this pivot button. This button may be used, it is essentially temporarily a way to offset something. Let me show you. Let's say we have some kind of character in a pose and I want to maybe move this pose as is to a certain point and then maybe rotate it. So I can select all the necessary controls. Here I have a special selection set for that. So it's usually like leg controls, arm controls, chest and pelvis and head. Then I click the pivot button. Maybe I want to move it to the 20th frame. I press it. On the last selected object, I'm going to get a locator. And then I can just move this locator to a certain position. Maybe I want to zero it out. You see it's now in the center of the scene. And it's going to remain as is until I remove the selection from the transform channels. So it's very important to remember, it's not like deselecting the object itself, it's deselecting the transform channels that I'm editing right now. So essentially, I can edit the transforms for the locator, then I can deselect these transforms, but do not deselect the object, the locator itself. I can use just left mouse click on the empty scene, or I can use the decel button. So all the usual stuff. And when I do it, so essentially when I deselect all the transform channels, it's gonna add another temporary locator, which then I can move, I can offset the character, I can maybe position the character the way I see fit, the way it's needed for me right now. And then, let's say if I decide that this pose is fine for me, after that, you can either click decel button or just left mouse click on the empty space, and it's going to select the locator itself. And after that, all these changes will be baked. And of course, you'll need the auto keyframe toggle just to add the key automatically. Yep. It also works with animation layers as well. But keep in mind that the animation layer itself also has to have keys. So I press pivot, set rotates and translates. Maybe I want to move it right here. Maybe I want to rotate the character relative to this point. Clicking the left mouse. Now I can rotate the locator as I see fit, position it, and we'll have it in a separate animation layer. So the information has been written down to this layer. But it's not it. For example, sometimes you need to create several poses and several points like this. How can we do it? Again, I'm going to press the pivot button. I can zero it out. Deselecting the channels. And we can do the following. I'm going to set the key here. I'm going to rotate the character. Maybe I want him to be in this pose. Maybe let's try actually adding different poses. Rotate again. And maybe here I want to rotate the character and actually move the character too. Again, you see this locator is animated. And the script understands if this object is animated, then you need to calculate these poses too. So I'm going to deselect. Give me a second. Right here, actually, let's set it to 0. Sorry. Yes, now we have 4 different poses. Then I deselect the locator. And this animation, as you can see, is going to be baked down from start to finish. Yep, cool. What else can it be used for? Let's delete it. Maybe you need, let's say we have some kind of object, maybe it's a leg, and let's say you want to move it, position it on the toes or something like that. I'm going to place the locator right here. Click the empty space, press the key, then rotate. And you see it's been rebaked. Very cool. But there is more. There is also a separate mode for this functionality. Maybe I have already had some kind of animation. Maybe he was moving the ankle like this, like, pressing the weight on the heel. And now I want to adjust this animation in some way. Just to position the foot a bit more precisely on the heel. And naturally, if you have been using the Base OverRig script, you know how to achieve this effect. It's rather easy to do using knots and stuff like that. It's very similar to using the knot offset function. But the pivot function is specifically needed for fast operations. So nothing difficult, nothing complex, just something very easy to do for a couple of frames, just to not to mess around with offsets, with like knots and other things. So you can select the time range, the necessary time range. Then you can press the pivot button. If you used the time range, if you selected the time range, then the script understands that it's necessary to rebake the animation that has been used in this time range. In this animation has to be rebaked on this locator. Then decel or click on the empty space. Now it has been rebaked. And until you deselected the object, maybe you can select the frames. And maybe I can add keys and translates. Yep. After that, we're deselecting the locator as usual. And that's it, the animation has been rebaked. Again, it is used for very fast animations, very fast iterations, changes. For something a bit more complex, naturally it's better to use knots, offsets, with like layers, depending on the case, maybe change the animation in the layer. And I would say that's it. That's it for the new functions. Also, I have fixed a few bugs, a few issues that were present previously in the script and that were reported by the users. And that's it. See ya.